Hello, hello. Welcome to our weekly live on Internet Land. This is Carrie Thrall with ABC Coaching, and I want to welcome you. Whether you're joining us from Facebook and the Healthy Helpers Hub, or you're coming at us from LinkedIn, or you're on YouTube watching this now or later, I really appreciate you taking some time and also finding out that this is helpful for you, right? That these are meant to be trainings that we do every week. I come to you every week with a new training focused in on different areas of coaching and how to help you work and function better in your life rather than getting stuck in old ways or old patterns. There's tips, there's tricks, there's struggles, there's all sorts of stuff that come out of these lives. And I encourage you, if you're here live, to just drop a hi. Let me know and comment along as you're listening or watching this. If you are watching this live, please do give StreamYard permission so I can see who's commenting. Otherwise, I can't see who's commenting. And I'll just say thank you to whoever's commenting. But these are meant to be places where you learn something and you grow a little bit. And you might get a little bit more insight into where you need support or where you're struggling and how to even just take a first step towards change. And today's topic is one of those that I really have had a hard time with for myself, which is defining productivity as my measure of success. Okay, so really productivity defined, the reason why I titled this is a lot of times people will think of productivity as really, if I'm not productive, then the day was not worth it, right? So it's sort of like this equation that gets put in our head. So again, let's dive into the training. If you're here live, just drop a hi. If you watch this later, let me know what strikes home, what questions you have. You always can message me afterwards as well. So diving in. So productivity. Now, this is a term that a lot of people struggle to define for themselves. But really what it is it's just really trying to measure some efficiencies in our lives, right? So it's, when you think of productivity as it is in in the business world or in economics, it's like, okay, the inputs versus outputs, right? So if they give examples of farming all the time for this, for productivity. If I plant 1,000 acres with pumpkin seeds and I get 10 pumpkins out of 1,000 acres, that's not a very productive field, right? So I might want to try different seeds or different soil or different plot of land. It's just not productive. Now, the thing is we've used that term, that productivity term, as how we define our success, though, as human beings. This is more than just like vines in the ground and how much fruit they're producing, right? This is when we start to say, okay, I'm trying to take a measure of human functioning and my systems and how efficient I am in my systems to define myself as a success or failure. And that's where it can be really tricky for a lot of people to understand what productivity even means in their personal context, and also what productivity looks like in the various contexts of life. So, I could say I had a really productive day at work, but I wasn't really productive in my relationships. Like, I didn't create any space for communication. I was literally working for 7 hours and then just shut down at the end of the day. Okay, so productivity shows up in one way. Maybe I accomplished a heck of a lot in those 7 hours, but it didn't show up in the most important way, which is when I'm living my life. Okay, so again, depending on your measure of what productivity is versus success versus failure in your brain, right? Productivity can be this thing that's constantly in the back of your mind. It's like, am I doing enough? Am I accomplishing enough? Am I creating enough space? Am I doing X, Y, or Z enough? Whatever that means, right? So I want to redefine productivity today. I want to take some time and say, okay, what is it really and what is it not? Okay, so we already know it's measuring how efficient we are with our time or whatever energy or time or like whatever we're putting into something, we want to get more out of it, right? Like, that's the idea of productivity, right? If I'm putting in 30 minutes and I get like an hour's worth of work out of it, I'm going to say, man, I was productive, right? That's a really, think about it. Like, if I'm let's say I set aside an hour for content development. All right. So I'm going to write a bunch of emails. I'm going to write a bunch of like these lives where I'm going to, write down a whole bunch of stuff about what I'm talking about. I'm going to set aside an hour, okay, to do all this writing. And I get all of the things that I wanted to get done in 30 minutes. I'm going to define that as being super efficient and productive, right? And then I have these extra 30 minutes, which is awesome, right? But if I set aside that same amount of time and I only get half of what I want done in that hour, I'm going to define that as being not productive or efficient with my time, because I'm setting this bar that's sort of tricky to work with, right? So when we think about productivity, again, we want to define it based on really, what am I passionate about? Am I putting in the most energy and effort to really get the results I want? And am I being fair to myself when I'm defining the parameters of success? Okay. So one thing that productivity is not is just being busy all the time. Okay. So there's a lot of times we'll walk through our life and we'll see that person literally that's like putting out all the fires. I was this person, by the way, when I was in administration before, where I'm literally walking through my life, putting out fires everywhere, and I have piles of work to do, and I'm trying to get it all done in a certain amount of time, and I was just busy. And there's times where when I got all of those to-dos checked off, I felt like a rock star, and I was really productive that day, but that was rare, because I kept getting more and more fires and more work piled on top of that stuff, and it was like, okay, well, the system is inefficient, and I keep on taking more onto my plate, which is making it even more inefficient. So my productivity went down. I wasn't feeling like I was really accomplishing much of anything, because I was just going from task to task to task and not feeling organized, focused, or paying much attention to what I was doing or how I was doing it. Okay. So what you want to think about is like, what is productivity to you? Okay. So why is it that you really want to increase your productivity? Where do you want to increase your productivity? Like I said before, productivity shows up in all areas of life. I want to make sure that my time off is productive. Let me say that again. I want to make sure my time off is productive, because I want to get the most relaxation, the most open expression of rejuvenation that I could possibly get in that time off. I want to make sure that whatever time I have, I'm using it efficiently to regroup, refocus, and get going on the next goal, right? So a lot of times productivity is also tied to work, and I want you to think about this as a bigger topic, right? It's how am I productive in my relationships? Again, am I being available? Am I available to communicate? Am I available to really engage in those conversations, to really open up inner connections with people, like deeper connections with people? Am I really available for that? Or do I keep distance from it because I'm so busy somewhere else, right? So I'm not being productive in relationships. I'm not being productive in certain areas of life when I'm being really super productive somewhere else, okay? So it's like, why do I want to increase productivity? Well, maybe I want to get more done. Maybe I want to get more things done so I can do what I enjoy doing. That's another thing I've heard a lot. And it's almost like, okay, well, if you're able to reach goals sooner, with more ease, with more focus, with more drive, but there's no passion or understanding that this has meaning or purpose behind it, you're just checking off goals and not really living the way you want to live. Okay, so you might get really super productive and efficient at something, but it may not be your passion project. Okay. So productivity doesn't, when I think about success, right? If we go back to the beginning from what I was talking about, if I'm like, my day was successful if I was productive, well, that's not really true if I tie productivity to something that I'm not passionate about. And that's what really led me to do a big career change, right? Because I was getting a whole bunch of things done, but I didn't have a lot of passion behind it. I didn't have meaning behind what I was doing. So yeah, sure, I was productive, but it wasn't really where I wanted to be. So I made big changes because productivity wasn't my measure of success anymore. It may be one measure of success, but it's not the only measure of success, is what I'm talking about here. So when you define your sense of productivity, I would ask you to answer a couple questions. Why is it that I want to increase my productivity? What do I gain? Okay, so what do I gain if I increase productivity? Why is it that this area of life is important to be more productive in? Right? Maybe there's something in that area of life that's a struggle or a pain point that you're like, if I'm more productive, it'll get easier and I'll be able to move more quickly through this pain point. Okay. For instance, like if I'm more focused on my time management, right? Like, so I'm saying, here's the 5 things I need to do. And I block off the time and I actually focus the time and do those 5 things. It allows me the freedom to use my schedule more effectively. And I get to that place of like, oh, this is all accomplished by this point, and I can move on to the next bigger goal, which might be, renovating my house or, doing something that I know is going to improve quality of life. Like, maybe it's getting, more exercise in, right? Like whatever that is, it's like, I know if I structure my time more efficiently, these other pieces will fall into place the way that I want them to. Okay. So ask yourself, why? It's almost like ask yourself the who, what, where, when, why, how, right? Like, why is this important to me? What can I gain from increasing productivity in this area of life? What goals can I reach sooner if I'm more productive? How do I define success? And if you see productivity as one of the only things there, it's like, how can I expand the definition of success then? Okay. Because if that's your only definition of success, you're going to be stuck. I'm just warning you now. It's because there's going to be days that are more productive and days that are less. All right. And so when you think about productivity, again, this is where you're trying to say, okay, why is this important to me? And if you are saying, I don't even know how to define it or see it in my life, look to others. Who is somebody in your life that you know is awesome at productivity? That they're good at managing their time, they get things done more quickly and easily, and start to model it. Model your success after them, because they might have really good tools and techniques that support you succeeding the way you want to succeed on the goals that you're working towards. So look to those around you and then turn your productivity into a habit. Okay. Just being able to say that can be hard to fathom it. But it's like getting the systems in place that increase productivity is regularly doing them, right? We've talked about brain dumps in here before, right? Brain dumps is where I clear my head. I put all the stuff that's up here taking up space so I can focus better. I need to clear this first. So I clear all my head out, and then I can be way more productive. Well, if I don't schedule the time for my brain dumps, then I still have all this stuff flying around up here, and I don't make the space and energy for the thing I really want to focus on. So if I want to turn that into a habit, I've got to say, okay, I'm going to regularly schedule my brain dumps. I'm going to dump my brain this time or these times every day, and just get it on the calendar. It takes 5 minutes. And then I know by doing that, I'm not only going to make my goal list more clear and focused, I'm going to be able to move through those tasks more readily because my brain will be focused on them. Okay. So that's just an example of turning productivity into habit. But whatever systems you put into place, it's scheduling them, rehearsing them, practicing them, so that becomes the healthy habit, and you continue to increase your productivity in that area of life. All right. And remember, it's like energy in equals more output, right? Like that's the idea. Like if I put in 30 minutes of time, but I get an hour's worth of output, right? That's productive time, right? So if I put in 30 minutes of time on writing, but I get a heck of a lot more done than I even anticipated, then it's like, okay, what system did I put in place that made that happen? Reflect on what was going on in that moment that allowed you to be more productive, and see if there's a way to create a habit around that too. So I know there's a lot of different tips and tricks in this one, because productivity is one where there's a lot of different hacks. There's so many different hacks that people go through to increase productivity. So what I'd encourage you to do is look at your life, people in your life, and also in yourself, and think about the last time you were super productive, and ask yourself, what was different then than maybe what I'm experiencing right now? What can I incorporate today that would help me get back into that system that helped me in the past? Okay, so this is a little bit of a shorter training, but I want you to think about productivity in that way. Redefine it. Don't look at it as, this is the only measure of success, but look at it as a measure of efficiency. And if there's inefficiencies in your life, how do you change that? What do you have control over to change? And how can you start moving your life in a more productive way? All right. So I hope this was helpful. Again, if you are watching this on the replay, just let me know what thoughts you had, what questions you had in the comments. And I appreciate you taking the time for these. If anyone is sitting there saying, oh my gosh, this topic is one that I struggle with, I have trouble sort of separating who I am as a person from my productivity, or I feel like the only time that I'm good enough is if I'm really productive, then give me a call, because that's where coaching can really help. It can help incorporate new ways of focusing on what you are accomplishing rather than getting stuck in what this definition of productivity is maybe making you think is not enough. Okay. So again, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Let me know how I can support you. And I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Take good care and have a good week.